projects in the school are evidence-based projects as such, in that the focus would have emerged from a series of student focus groups, student surveys, teachers coming together and I suppose identifying things that are maybe working well in the school or areas that we need to improve on. And I suppose, our going back again to our overall aim, which was to give students a little bit more ownership and responsibility for the learning. Students themselves identified for us that, for them to get that, they needed clarity in the classroom, they needed to be clear on what the intended learning was. They'd like to have a bit of ownership, more ownership of the actual learning that's taking place through, purposeful activities. And they also identified that they would like a little bit more time to be able to stop and pause and kind of reflect on their learning. So all of those were student identified areas of focus, and this project was, its aim was to build on those and try to truly embed those in the subject areas in question.
Okay, so the focus for us here in CCC with Step Up was to move from effective to highly effective practice within the area of oral language development. And I suppose that came from as a result of teachers' observations and their experiences from having engaged in implementing the CBAs for the first time. And I suppose as they reflected and looked back on that, they saw areas where they would rather do things differently to ensure that students had not just better outcomes but better experiences of the CBAs as well. So to that end, they decided that they wanted to focus on the oral language development, and it was very much a cohesive approach that we took. There were 2 English teachers involved, a business teacher and a science teacher. So we focused on explicitly supporting the skills so that students would be better able to engage in speaking and listening, and so that the competency and confidence would go hand in hand.
The focus for our project is praxis, which is reflection in action. So how exactly we can build reflection into classroom practice with a focus then on extending that into the relevance of action. The reason that we decided to focus on this is it came out of a recent MLL that we had in the school, and also our school were part of the ATS 2020 project that focused on some feedback and goal setting as well.
The focus of our project was, it came as a result of a staff audit of the 24 statements of learning in junior cycle. And from that, while we were highly effective in certain areas, particularly around ICT, with we had kind of embarked on the digital strategy for schools around ICT. One area that we felt we could maybe kind of try and move from effective to highly effective was the digital literacy area. Initially, we sat down with as a Step Up team, and we actually put everything on the table, and we said, well, exactly what are your concerns around here? Because people are at different stages with regard to this, and had certain different levels of comfort around it. So we asked, everything was put on the table, and we discussed what we need, what our needs might be.
We looked at the second year students in our school, and we feel that as a year group, they're the students that are more likely to disengage with their learning. So we felt that this was somewhere we could maybe try and improve, and by including something like classroom management and classroom feedback, it was something that was manageable for us to do as teachers. The advice that we would give for, say, a school that's considering something similar would be to choose a project that is very manageable, something that you're already doing in class, and maybe trying to improve it and take that step further with student engagement or participation or motivation, but choose something that is easy and accessible for you and the students.
Well, as part of a senior management team, managing change is something that we kind of have to just work at, and we can find it daunting and our staff can find it daunting, but I think it's very important not to kind of be too far up in the sky about this. That phrase managing change is used an awful lot, but it does come down to nuts and bolts and step by step and things that you do on a daily basis. Now, with regard to Step Up and being the coordinator of the project, I think it's and a bit like school self-evaluation as well. We started very small, basic things like just choosing something that's manageable and that's doable. And I think the SSE process helps you with that, it guides you with that. And that would involve just simple things like arranging meetings for having the time to, and giving the staff the time and the breathing space to have the conversations in the early days. Also too, when you move forward through the process, it's important to keep the staff informed, all of the staff informed about just where you're at and what you're doing. And even before we started the project, I myself gave a presentation to the staff before we actually began the the project, on what was involved in Step Up, what it was going to mean for us, and just to make the whole staff aware. That's important. And then at points along the way, we would, you know, at staff meetings, you know, you know, before when we were having staff meetings, we had opportunities there. There was always a slot by a member of the team just to update the staff, and things like that are so important as you move through the process. So, you know, like I say, we were also very supported by, you know, Junior Cycle for Teachers and the inspectorate as well, because we could call on them at any stage, you know, to come in, and we did, and they did come in, and we sat down as a team, talked about where we were at, and, you know, discussed where we might go with this. Things, we knew that support was always there. And something that really should never really be underestimated is the importance of the Looking at Our Schools document. It is there to look at and see, well, we're effective in this, and how do we go to highly effective? And it gives very clear guidelines on how you can do that within your own particular context, within your own particular school. It's not a one-size-fits-all. You look at it and you say, where are we with regard to effective practice? And where are we with regard to highly effective practice? And there's no need to be fazed by that. Within the domain 3 is the one I'm thinking about, leading school development, is the one that has it all there, really, when you think about it. You know, so I'm not saying there weren't bumps in the road. There were. There are always bumps in the road, but I think that's also part of the process. As you learn, as you go, you're never done. You never come along and say, we're finished now, it's all over. But that's a good thing.
Okay. So I suppose my advice would be, in terms of attempting to move from effective to highly effective practice, would be to really focus your attention in terms of whittle it right down, you know, make sure that you have a laser focus, because the temptation can be to try and do too much from the outset, and it's not achievable then as you engage in the work. And that was something that we even found ourselves. We would have had initially a huge plan that was just far too ambitious, and again, it was with the support of JCT and the inspectorate that actually, you know, I suppose gave us the confidence to say we need to slow it down and we need to actually pare things back. So I suppose, like that, the more focused your lens can be, the better, and to be very, very clear on what it is you're trying to achieve. So to simplify it, and to simplify it further, and then go from there. To take the time with your team to ensure that it is a shared vision, and ensure that everybody does understand and have the same meaning when we're talking about, you know, whatever the item is. That's really important, and that really helped us as well. And then it's a case of, you know, plan out your plan. I think you need an action plan, and it needs to be, you know, you need to have your steps outlined in terms of, you know, what are the actions that will have to be taken, and who's going to do what and when, and have, I suppose, a set of different deadlines and criteria that you want to reach before you move on to something else. And as well as that, you know, don't expect perfection. It's going to take time, and for something to be meaningful, it will take real time, and to allow yourself that time. And like that, just to ensure that you have a good plan in place and to follow it, but again, to check in and review. And if something is not quite working, again, to really examine it and explore why exactly it's not working. And again, you can make a change to it. It is your plan, so you're allowed to let it evolve and grow over the time.